Yo, ever feel like trading is just a gamble? Like you're rolling dice instead of making smart moves? Stick around because I'm about to drop the shocking truth about trading that nobody tells you. All right, let's be real. Most traders think they're making money with skill. But honestly, a lot of us are just letting our brains trick us into gambling. In this video, I'm going to break down the psychology behind why trading feels like gambling, show you the mistakes you didn't even know you were making, and share how the pros stay in control while others keep losing. By the end, you'll see trading in a totally new way, and trust me, it's not what you've been told. You ever catch yourself staring at your phone every 5 minutes, just hoping that green number pops up on your trade? If you're honest, it kind of feels like you're rolling dice at a casino, right? That rush you get when a trade suddenly spikes in your favor, or the sinking feeling when it tanks, it's wild. And honestly, it's what hooks a lot of people into trading. Beginners and even some experienced traders fall into this trap all the time. It's not just about the money, it's about the adrenaline hit, the thrill of watching numbers move, and the way your brain lights up every time you think you might win big. See, trading isn't naturally addictive in itself. It's the way our brains respond to short-term wins and losses. When you make a quick profit, your brain releases dopamine, and suddenly you're thinking, yeah, I've got this. I'm a trading genius. But then, just a few minutes later, if a trade goes south, your chest tightens, your stomach drops, and you start wondering if maybe you're just not cut out for this. That emotional roller coaster, that's exactly what makes trading feel like gambling. It's not the strategy, it's the constant back and forth of reward and pain. Let me break it down in a way everyone can relate to. Imagine you're at home, sipping your coffee, and you just placed a trade. 10 minutes later, you're glued to your screen, checking every second, heart racing, fingers tapping your desk, just hoping your trade went green. That feeling of anticipation, the hope, the fear, the excitement, is the same thing that happens when someone's at a slot machine. Only difference, the numbers on your screen are moving faster, and your brain has no idea if it's skill or luck making those numbers go up or down. That mix of uncertainty and adrenaline is what tricks your mind into thinking every trade is a gamble, even if you're following a solid strategy. It's crazy, but even traders who have been at it for years can get caught in this. One minute, they're calm, analyzing charts, making rational moves. The next minute, a tiny win or loss triggers that fight-or-flight reaction, and suddenly they're overtrading or holding on to losing positions like their life depends on it. And here's the thing. It's not just about money. It's about the emotion attached to winning or losing, and how our brains are wired to chase that feeling over logic. Even pros admit that the early days of trading are intense. They talk about the rush of the market and how it can be intoxicating when trades hit perfectly. But what separates pros from gamblers is awareness. They recognize the adrenaline for what it is and use it to make smart decisions instead of letting it control them. Beginners, though, usually have no clue that their brain is doing a number on them. They just feel the highs, feel the lows, and chase whatever emotion hits hardest in that moment. That's the very definition of trading feeling like gambling. Another thing that messes with your head is short-term results. In today's world, we're wired for instant gratification. We want things fast, and trading feeds into that. A tiny profit today, a small loss tomorrow, and your brain starts seeing patterns that aren't really there. You think, oh, I just need one more trade to make it back, or this setup has to hit, it's my lucky day. That's classic gambling behavior, and it sneaks up on every trader at some point. You start trusting your gut over your strategy, and suddenly, what was supposed to be calculated risk becomes a roll of the dice. Here's a real talk moment. The more you check your trades constantly, the more your brain gets addicted to that hit of uncertainty. You're not just trading money, you're trading emotional spikes. And the more you do it, the more your brain starts associating trading with that thrilling, unpredictable feeling. That's why people say trading feels like gambling. It literally hijacks your emotions in the same way. So if you've been wondering why your trades feel like a roller coaster ride, that's exactly it. It's your brain responding to short-term wins and losses, adrenaline surges, and the constant back and forth of hope and fear. But don't get it twisted. Feeling this way doesn't mean you're doomed. Awareness is the first step, and recognizing this gambling-like feeling is exactly what separates beginners from traders who eventually learn to control their emotions. And speaking of control, here's where things start getting really interesting, because now that you know why trading feels like a gamble, the rush, the highs, the lows, let's get real about why so many trades end up going south. It's not just bad luck or the market being mean. A lot of the time, it's your own brain playing tricks on you. And yeah, it's wild how something as simple as how we think can make trading feel like rolling dice. First up, let's talk about loss aversion. If you've ever held on to a losing trade way too long hoping it'll bounce back, you already know this feeling. Our brains are wired to hate losing way more than we like winning. That little sting of a loss hits harder than the joy of a small win. So what do most traders do? They get stuck. They refuse to cut their losses, thinking, nah, I just need a little more time. It's gotta turn around. And while that might work occasionally, more often than not, it just digs you deeper into a hole. Imagine you're at a casino and you keep putting chips on red even though the wheel keeps landing black. You feel me? That's loss aversion messing with your trading decisions. Then there's the overconfidence trap. You hit a couple of small wins in a row, maybe you made a few $100, and suddenly your brain's on fire thinking, yo, I'm untouchable, I got this all figured out. But here's the catch. That feeling can cloud your judgment. Overconfidence makes you take bigger risks, ignore strategy rules, and forget that the market doesn't care about your streak. You start thinking you're a genius, when in reality, it's just a small sample of wins tricking your brain into thinking you're invincible. Beginners fall into this all the time, but even vets aren't immune if they let the ego take the wheel. And now, the one that probably hits hardest, chasing losses. We've all been there. A trade tanks, you get frustrated, and your mind screams, I just need to make it back. One trade, one trade. That's chasing losses, plain and simple. The problem is, when you chase, you're letting emotion run your trades instead of logic. You stop analyzing charts, stop following strategy, and start gambling, trying to win it all back fast. It's like doubling down at a blackjack table after a bad hand. You might get lucky, but the odds aren't in your favor. Here's a real-life example that hits home for most traders. Let's say you made 3 trades in a day. The first 2 hit small profits, so you're feeling good. Then the third one goes south and burns a chunk of your account. That gut punch makes you want to take another trade immediately to recover the loss. But because you're emotionally charged, you're more likely to make sloppy decisions. Maybe you ignore your risk rules. Maybe you over-leverage. And boom, you end up losing even more. That's the mental trap right there, and it's exactly why trading can feel like gambling even if you know what you're doing. The crazy part is that all these biases, loss aversion, overconfidence, and chasing losses, feed into each other. You lose and your fear makes you hold or chase. You win and your brain overinflates your confidence. You keep repeating the cycle, and suddenly trading feels less like a skill and more like a gamble that's controlling you. And most traders don't even realize it's happening until it's too late. But here's the good news. Awareness is half the battle. Just knowing that your brain is wired this way lets you start catching yourself before you fall into these traps. Professionals do this all the time. They don't just trade blindly. They notice when they're overconfident, when they're clinging to losses, or when fear is creeping in. And then they take a step back, follow their plan, and make trades based on strategy, not emotion. Now this is where things get really interesting, because once you understand why your mind sabotages you, you can start thinking like a pro instead of like a gambler. And that's the next step we're diving into: how pros think differently, how they manage their emotions, and what separates a consistent trader from someone stuck in that roulette wheel mindset. By the end of the next section, you'll see exactly what it takes to flip your mental switch and trade smart, no matter how crazy the market gets. Alright, so now that we've seen why most traders get stuck in that roller coaster of emotions, why losses feel gut-punching and wins make you think you're untouchable, it's time to flip the script and see how pros think differently. This is the part that separates the casual gamblers from traders who actually make consistent money in the long run. And trust me, it's not some secret voodoo trick. It's all about mindset and strategy. First off, let's talk about the gambler mindset versus the professional trader mindset. The gambler is always chasing highs and trying to avoid pain. They let their emotions run the show. If a trade goes bad, panic. If a trade hits, euphoria. Decisions are made on gut feelings, tips, or superstition, not logic. The pro, on the other hand, approaches trading like a business. They don't freak out over a single trade, and they don't let a win turn into reckless confidence. They're focused on the bigger picture, consistency, probabilities, and risk management. One huge difference is how pros control emotions. Let's be real, the market doesn't care about your feelings. You can't let fear or greed dictate your moves. Pros know this and create rules to keep emotions in check. Maybe they step away from the screen when a trade isn't going their way, or maybe they follow a preset checklist before entering any position. Either way, emotion doesn't get to call the shots. They do. That's why a pro can see the same market action that makes beginners sweat bullets and just calmly follow their plan without getting sucked into panic or impulsive decisions. Another thing pros do differently is they stick to strategies. They have a system and they trust it. It could be based on technical indicators, chart patterns, or probability analysis. But whatever it is, it's repeatable. They don't chase the hot tip or try to make back losses on a whim. They know that not every trade will win, and that's okay, because the system is designed to work over time. That kind of discipline is what keeps gambling instincts at bay and turns trading into a calculated game rather than a thrill ride. And here's where it gets actionable for you. One of the simplest things pros do is journal every single trade. Sounds boring, right? But writing down why you entered, why you exited, and how you felt gives insane clarity. After a few weeks, you start noticing patterns in your own behavior, when fear hits, when overconfidence sneaks in, and then you can fix it. Journaling turns emotional chaos into cold, hard data you can actually use to improve. Then there's the classic stop loss. Pros use stop losses not because they're pessimistic, but because they know the market is unpredictable. It's like having a safety net. They're saying, I've got a plan for if things go wrong and I'm sticking to it. That's the opposite of gamblers, who often hold losing trades way too long, praying for a miracle. Setting stop losses keeps emotion out of the decision and prevents small losses from turning into catastrophic ones. And let's not forget probabilities and risk management. Pros don't bet it all on a single trade. They understand that trading is about edge and probabilities, not certainty. They calculate how much risk they're willing to take, focus on trades with higher probability setups, and know that over time a series of good decisions will outweigh the occasional loss. Compare that to someone chasing losses, hoping for a miracle. Completely different game. The key takeaway here is mindset. Pros see the market for what it really is, a neutral playground of opportunity, not a casino designed to punish them. They respect the game, follow rules, manage risk, and don't let short-term emotions hijack their decisions. That's why even when the market gets messy, they stay calm, rational, and consistent. And you can do the same if you start building these habits into your trading routine. Now, here's the thing. Knowing how pros think is powerful, but it's only part of the story. The next step is about common mistakes that keep traders trapped in gambling mode, and this is where most people lose their edge without even realizing it. If you stick around, I'm going to break down those traps, show why they happen, and how you can avoid falling right into them, so you can start trading more like a pro and less like a gambler. All right, so now we've seen how pros think differently and why that mindset separates winners from gamblers. But let's get real for a second. Most traders don't start out as pros, and there are a few common mistakes that trap people in gambling mode. These are the habits that keep you on that emotional roller coaster, wondering why your trades feel more like a lottery than a business. And yeah, the funny or scary thing is, these mistakes are so common that almost every beginner hits them, and even some intermediate traders slip up if they're not paying attention. First up, overtrading. Man, this is a killer. You know that feeling when you make one decent trade and suddenly think, yo, I can't stop now, I'm on fire? That's the trap. Overtrading happens when you let excitement or frustration dictate your moves. Maybe you're trying to make up for a loss, or you just hit a few small wins and feel unstoppable. Either way, you're taking trades that aren't part of your plan, and that's a fast track to burning your account. Picture someone at a casino hitting the slot machine non-stop after a small win. They think they're lucky, but luck isn't a strategy. Same with trading. Overtrading isn't skill. It's letting your emotions gamble with your money. Next, let's talk about ignoring risk management. This one sneaks up on traders because it feels boring at first. Like, who wants to think about stop losses, position sizing, or maximum risk per trade when the market is moving and the money looks easy? But ignoring risk is like driving blindfolded. Sure, you might get somewhere, but the odds aren't in your favor. A lot of traders take bigger risks than they should, chasing bigger wins, and then freak out when the trade goes south. Professionals know this and always define risk before they even enter a trade. They're not being pessimistic, they're being smart. And you can be too if you start putting rules in place that protect your account from emotional decisions. Now, let's be honest about letting emotions dictate trades. This is the biggest culprit of all. Fear, greed, frustration, they'll hijack your brain if you let them. Maybe you just took a loss and feel desperate to get it back. Maybe a winning streak makes you overconfident. Either way, your emotions start controlling your entries and exits instead of logic. I've seen traders hold on to losers way too long, only to watch their account shrink while they pray the market reverses. I've seen others jump in impulsively after a loss, thinking, this time it'll be different, and end up worse off. That emotional cycle is exactly what makes trading feel like gambling. Your mind is chasing highs and avoiding pain, just like a gambler chasing a win at the blackjack table. Here's a small story that hits home. Let's say Jake, a trader I know, started the day with a loss on a bad trade. He got frustrated and told himself, I just need one more trade to break even. So he jumped into another setup, ignored his usual rules, and within an hour, he doubled his losses. He didn't need the market to be cruel. He just let frustration and ego dictate his moves. That's a classic example of how overtrading, ignoring risk, and emotional decisions all collide. The tricky part is these mistakes often reinforce themselves. Overtrade once, take a big loss, feel emotional, chase the loss, and boom, you're back in gambling mode. And the longer this cycle continues, the harder it is to step back and trade like a pro. That's why breaking these habits is crucial. You've got to recognize when you're slipping, slow down, and remember that trading isn't about chasing thrills. It's about consistent, calculated moves over time. Now here's where we start setting the stage for the next step, because spotting these mistakes is only the beginning. The real power comes when you learn how to break the gambling habit entirely, how to retrain your mind, control impulses, and start making trades based on strategy instead of emotion. That's what we're diving into next, actionable ways to shift your mindset and stop trading like a gambler, so you can finally take control and trade smart, even when the market is crazy. All right, so now we've nailed the common mistakes that keep traders trapped in gambling mode. You see them, you get them, and now it's time to flip the script and actually break the habit that's been holding you back. This is where the real game changer happens, because trading isn't supposed to feel like a roller coaster. It's supposed to be a calculated, controlled process that grows your skills and your account over time. The first step to breaking that gambling habit is treating trading like a real business, not a game. I know it's tempting to get hyped up over quick wins or freak out over losses, but pros approach this differently. They don't see each trade as a jackpot or a chance to make fast cash. They see it as a business decision with a strategy, rules, and calculated risk. Imagine you're running a small business. You wouldn't make decisions based on emotions, right? You'd analyze the numbers, plan your moves, and make decisions that keep your business sustainable. That's exactly how you need to approach trading. Shift your mindset from thrill seeker to strategist, and the gambling impulses start to fade. Next up, it's all about focusing on the process, not the outcome. One of the biggest traps is obsessing over whether a trade will win or lose. The truth is, you can control your strategy and execution, but you can't control the market. By focusing on doing the right thing, following your plan, Using proper risk management and sticking to your rules, you're building a system that works in the long run. The outcome of one trade doesn't define you. Think about it like sports. A basketball player practices their shot hundreds of times. Some shots miss, some shots hit, but it's the process of practicing the fundamentals that makes them great, not obsessing over each point scored. Another game-changing habit is keeping a trading journal. This might sound boring, but trust me, it's gold. Write down every trade, why you entered, why you exited, how you felt, and what you learned. After a few weeks, patterns start to show up, like when fear is creeping in, when you're overconfident, or when a certain setup works best. A journal turns emotional chaos into data you can actually use, and once you see those patterns, you can start correcting them. It's like having a personal coach guiding your decisions and keeping you honest. And here's a big one, taking breaks to reset emotions. Trading non-stop is like running a marathon without water. Eventually you crash. When your emotions are high, whether from a loss or a streak of wins, it's easy to make impulsive moves. Step away, clear your head, and come back with a calm mindset. Even just a 10-15-minute pause can prevent a lot of mistakes. The pros do this all the time. They know that emotional control is just as important as chart analysis. Let's tie this together with a small story. Picture Sarah, a trader who used to get stuck in gambling mode. She'd chase losses, overtrade, and let fear make her decisions. Once she started treating her trades like a business, journaling every move, focusing on her process, and taking intentional breaks, everything changed. She wasn't making wild gains overnight, but she was consistent. Her trades were cleaner, her emotions were under control, and her account started growing steadily. That's what happens when you break the gambling habit and trade smart. Now, here's the key takeaway. Breaking the gambling habit isn't about magic or luck. It's about building habits that put control back in your hands, seeing trading as a business, focusing on process over outcome, tracking your patterns, and stepping back when emotions run high. Start applying these, and the stress, adrenaline, and uncertainty that made trading feel like a gamble will start to disappear. And speaking of next steps, once you've got this mindset shift down, it's all about wrapping it up with a final message and a call to action. We're going to pull everything together, make it super motivational, and show you how to take everything you've learned and actually start applying it in your trading life. Stick around for that, because this is where it all comes full circle, and you'll walk away ready to trade like a pro, not a gambler. So let's wrap this up and lock in the big takeaways from everything we've talked about today. First off, trading feels like gambling because our brains are wired to chase highs and avoid losses. That rush, those emotional spikes, and the short-term wins and losses trick your mind into thinking every trade is a roll of the dice. Then we dug into the psychology behind losing trades, things like loss aversion, overconfidence, and chasing losses. Basically, all the ways your brain can sabotage you without you even realizing it. After that, we flipped the lens and looked at how pros think differently. They control emotions, stick to strategies, and trade like a business instead of chasing thrills. And then we broke down the common mistakes most traders make: overtrading, ignoring risk management, and letting emotions dictate decisions, all the stuff that keeps people stuck in that gambling cycle. Finally, we went over actionable ways to break the habit. Treat trading like a business, focus on process over outcome, keep a trading journal, and take breaks to reset your emotions. When you start applying these habits, the stress, the adrenaline, and the guessing games start to fade, and you trade smarter, not harder. Now here's the kicker. We've only scratched the surface. In the next video, I'm going to reveal a psychological trick that pros use to stay calm under pressure and make better decisions every single time. If you've ever felt your emotions hijack your trades, this next tip is going to blow your mind and give you an edge you didn't even know existed. So make sure you're tuned in, because we're taking your trading mindset to the next level.